Buck Showalter is back with a bold new realignment plan.
Oh,
And Buck, we put it on paper. So we're going to
oh,
let you look
geez.
at it and run us through what you think could or should happen, because most scenarios involve four teams in pods or divisions. And some people are discussing how much we should break up what is traditionally there already. Here's Buck's plan with divisions 1 through 4. What do you have for us?
Well, first of all, if you look at the AFL and the NFL, you look at the NBA and the ABA, even hockey, they've all kind of, okay, tradition's great and I love it. Nobody but at some point you got to figure out a way. I don't want to hear that all of a sudden they're more concerned about the player's health because of travel. Okay, and that's a great point. If they want to do that, they need to decrease the number of games they play, like they do in the minor leagues, but and have a certain scheduled day off. That's a subject for another day. But you're trying to regionally get it done, and there's tweaks here. I did this at ESPN a long, long time ago when there were 28 teams, and they gave me like 2 minutes on the air. It was 4 7-team divisions, and I said it'll never work out because it makes too much sense. And we got a call the next day from the commissioner's office. They wanted to see the tape, and there's a lot of tweaks here. I'm assuming that Salt Lake City and Nashville, it sounds like they're the leading candidates. Who knows who you talk to? Is Oakland going to end up in Vegas or not? Sometimes you do. Does baseball really work in Florida where you have spring training? That's a subject for another day. Would Tampa and Miami ever make it? When you can pay $10 for a ticket and all of a sudden you got a team there playing 81 home games. Does baseball really work in Arizona? There's some debate about that because they have spring training there. So, this can, by the time they get to it, who knows what the landscape is going to look like. Now, you guys go ahead and tear it apart.
No, I like the idea, but I guess my question, you had mentioned some stuff is the tradition of the game. Obviously, if you're expanding the league and you're adding teams, you're kind of changing the tradition of the league. Do you think a realignment could also lead to a realignment of the schedule in terms of what you were mentioning, creating an off
Yeah.
day for these guys? Maybe you play. I'm not a big fan of the 6-day consecutive against one team like they do in AAA, but I do like the idea of having one off day a week with the ability of having like you pick a Monday night or a Wednesday night and you have where every other team has an off day. Maybe there's 4 teams that play that day, and then you have like a premier game of the week, kind of bring back like an addition to like a Sunday night baseball sort of thing. You do have this premier matchup 2 games a week. You get a lot of viewership on those 4 teams. I think it would be great for the game.
Well, if I actually thought about Monday being a makeup day for instead of staying away from doubleheaders, because doubleheaders are killers for a pitching staff and a team. You're just trying to survive them. If most people, they say, hey, you can split and not play the doubleheader, you sign up for it and go, because the sweep is what kills you. And your pitching staff, it takes them a week to recover. So maybe you play those makeup games there. But anything that decreases the number of games, which as has already been said here, is money. They're going to have a hard time embracing that. And I just, there's a way to do it, but, it's people smarter than me. When I was on the competition committee, I would find out reasons why things couldn't be done. There's some factors behind the scenes that I'm sure we're not aware of. Most of it comes from TV and, like you guys said, it's a money related thing, but, we got an opportunity with expansion to look at things differently and see if you want to tweak some things.
All right, a couple things on what was just said. First of all, KP, there is a game of the week. It's on Saturday night, or actually it's tonight. It's Red Sox, Yankees, and Astros at Orioles. So there's 2 games of the week tonight. Tune in to your local Fox stations to see them.
But they're not.
Okay?
But they're not the only. They're not the only 2 games. That's my point. Is if those
Well,
were
they'll
the
never
only
do that.
2,
You can never. You
I'm
can
saying
never
if
do
those
that.
were the only 2 games of the week, would they probably get a lot more viewership? Because although they are the premier games of the week and they're on national television, fans of their own team are probably going to watch their own games if they're on at the same time. I'm trying to figure out a way to create like a Monday night football for baseball.
Well, they had it. It was
2
Sunday
teams
night
playing.
baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have Sunday Night Baseball.
And guess what? The company that wanted to broadcast it didn't want to do it anymore, and now they're out. So there's a thing. But then here, Buck. Here's my thing. I love this. I love the 4-team or the four Division 8 team thing that you came up with. I love it because then you could still keep a traditional National League, American League. The problem is you're going to have to make it like an East versus the West or something if you want to cut down on travel. And I've had this argument. So do you only have the East teams go to the West teams once every other year? Do you have to still make a trip? Because that's the same schedule they have now where the American League has to go to every team in the American League at least once a year, right? So you see, that's where so you have an East, basically Division I, a Southeast, Midwest, and then you have a West, Southwest on the Division 4. So how do you divide it and make it East and West? Is that what you're going to do then? Does the East always play the West? You see, so like in the NBA, they have an East and a West, but teams still make a trip to each team every year. So that's where in baseball it gets confusing. What does it really change?
Well, I was thinking that everybody plays everybody. I'm big about the integrity of the schedule. I want to know that you face the same competition I did home and away. And if you do the math, 6 games, whatever. Hey, by the way, I've been wanting to ask you guys. So you look in the minor leagues, you mentioned they're playing each other, Kevin, I think 6 times in a row or 5 times in a row. Could you imagine early on in y'all's career, I don't know about now, if you played a team 5 or 6 times in a row, how many fights would there be in game 4?
Probably a good amount.
You're asking the wrong person because I'm fighting.
Can you imagine getting that familiar with all the things I've asked minor league managers, I go, how do y'all stay out of skirmishes or fights or confrontations? He said they're just not wired that way anymore.
Buck, what if you had to have the same umpiring crew for 6 straight days? How many games would you be in?
I got no chance. Unless
the best thing that happened to you is after. I was going to say the best thing that happened to you is after 3 or 4 days, you were getting a new crew.
Yeah, but you know what's funny? Did you guys find that guys that you came up through the minor leagues with, you got along with better in the big leagues? Minor league umpires that you had bounced around in different leagues and they had worked their way up. There was a different people skills. Back then umpires had to have people skills, and it would offset the fact that they weren't a very good umpire if they knew how to handle people.
I don't know. By the way, Buck, the minor leagues, and we're so far off topic, but let's just roll with it, okay? Here's the thing. The minor leagues are part of the pitching woes that we have because they only pitch 1 day a week. They pitch 1 day a week in high school. They pitch 1 day a week in college. They pitch 1 day a week in the minor leagues. And by the way, when they get to the big leagues, they're supposed to pitch every 5th day. They've never done in their life. So by eliminating first of all, my biggest problem with the minor leagues is you eliminate the teams, okay, which saves money. It always goes back to money for Major League Baseball. Okay. But then they also eliminated players. So there's only 20 rounds in the draft. So you have less players. Therefore, you have less opportunities for guys. And if you don't go in and you don't perform right away, teams are like, yep, you're out. You got 1 year. You didn't perform. You're out. There's less chance to develop guys. And then also the pitchers, they never pitch 5 days. They never pitch on 5 days rest. So how do you expect to call them up to the best league in the world and say, hey, Buck, hey, whoever, we'll use, I don't know, whoever you want to use. Pick a guy, Jacob deGrom. Jacob deGrom, you only pitch once every week for your whole career. And then, by the way, you get to the big leagues, you got to call him his office and say, you're pitching every 5th day. And the guy's going, ow, 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 I've never done this.
That's one of the biggest problems.
It's crazy.
One of the biggest problems with taking a Japanese pitcher. When you get a Japanese pitcher, they're pitching basically on Friday night. And, we had that issue with Senga with the Mets. And the other part of it, AJ, and it's along the lines of what you're talking about, the other day, some guy got called up. It was a big prospect. So I kind of looked at his pitching log and looked in the back. He didn't pitch more than 4 or 5 innings in his starts. And they were talking about how he was going to come up and save the staff and help their bullpen. Well, if you're pitching 4 innings out of the bullpen every time this guy pitches, you're not saving a bullpen. And, I think where our issue is that we're not – I know when I started with the minor leagues, and I hate saying that, but as a manager – we were not allowed to take our guys out of the game before they threw 100 pitches. They said, hey, let them learn how to get out of the stuff. They should throw between the 90 and 100, and you leave them out there. I remember going out there and going, hey, you notice I got nobody up in the bullpen? You better figure this stuff out. But yet we don't train them for what we expect them to do in the big leagues. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. What are y'all's thoughts on that?
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree to you. To your point, AJ, I would have been a victim of the system. I was a 32nd round draft pick. I don't even get drafted today. So, maybe it doesn't happen all the time, but I hate the fact that they cut the minor league system, because there's a lot of guys out there that, maybe are late bloomers. Maybe it took them a little bit to develop. And in my case, I got drafted where I got drafted, but I moved quickly. And, without having those extra, 20, 25 rounds, maybe I don't get an opportunity. Maybe I'm not sitting here. My life's completely different without the 50 rounds that there used to be.
But Kevin, though, I guarantee you, and I don't even know the background, I'll bet you somewhere along the line in your minor league career, some coach or manager got you, or a farm director. Somebody got you. They didn't care where you were drafted, and they kept saying, hey, don't forget about Pilar, because they watched you on their team compete and help their team win. That voice of the boots on the ground guys like you, that's how they would get overlooked, because some manager didn't stand up and go, hold on a second, I know he wasn't drafted first, but this guy's a baseball player. Was that true?
I mean, it happened multiple times in my career. I mean, my first hitting coach in the minor leagues when I was in rookie ball, I got with him. He helped me develop routine. He pounded the table for me to go to the next level. My managers in low A fought on the table. We got to promote this guy. I don't care what round he was in. And, my double A manager, same thing. I'll never forget a story. It was my first at bat in double A. I'm in New Hampshire, Manchester, New Hampshire, freezing cold. My first at bat, guy hits a leadoff double. It's the first game of the year, and I do everything in my power to move this guy over. I'm fighting balls off in the dugout, and I remember someone telling me like a year later, they said, "That's how I knew you were going to be a big leaguer." And that guy stood up for me. And when he had an opportunity to, talk to the manager of the team, the front office, he said, "This is the type of guy you want." And I think that's missing in today's world, is the manager actually of your minor league teams having the ability to go out and be like, forget about what the stats say, the exit velocity, the sabermetrics. This guy knows how to win. This is the type of guy you want on your team. And I was very thankful why I came across a lot of managers in the minor leagues that would pound the table for me.
Well, what happens when your butt's on the line as a manager to win games, you are drawn to players like that. And you're in those meetings, and we used to, in minor leagues, we used to have fight over players like you. We would want this guy in double A because we knew that he could help us win. When we left minor league camp with the Yankees, Mr. Steinbrenner told us we had two jobs: win your league and develop players, and that was one and the same. He felt like players learning how to win was part of development.
FT fans, you want to have confidence when you go out in public? Absolutely. We can't all wear a backwards hat like me, but you can get some True Classic fit shirts. It almost looks like, oh, wow, this shirt was tailored for me. Nope, it's every True Classic. This John is soft, it is smooth, and it makes you look a little jacked. I'm just saying.
And Kratz, you are jacked, and you are spot on. True Classic is the spot to go if someone's like, where do I get shirts? True Classic. The colors are fantastic. They've sold over 25 million shirts to more than 5 million customers. Their shirts just win. The feel, the tailored look, the price. We all wear True Classic on FT. I mean, Cam Maben literally can't say enough about them too. Next time we have Cam on, hit up trueclassic.com/foul. Give it a shot. Upgrade your wardrobe and save on True Classic at trueclassic.com/foul. That's trueclassic.com/FOUL.
Shohei Ohtani has rules made for him as far as starting, and then he can stay in the game as a DH. But if he is a reliever, he can't be the DH, come in as a reliever, and then go back to DH. What are your thoughts on this? And do you think Major League Baseball will change this so he has an opportunity to be a reliever in the postseason?
Yes. To me, you got to be careful. I'm talking to some people that everybody loves this guy, unbelievable talent, but talking to some people that when he was with other clubs, what must be the Angels, it creates some issues on your pitching staff, because the starters don't know when necessarily he's going to pitch, when he's going to slide in. Is he going to pitch on 4 days? Is he going to pitch on 5 days? Are we going to give him an extra day because of this? I always thought that he would have been a great closer, where you would just DH him, and when it came time for the 8th or 9th inning, he just went over and pitched. And, who cares if you lost your DH because he's still hitting. Now, you tell me I'm not brought up to speed on it. Is that no longer the case, AJ? Am I missing something?
You lose the DH if he comes in as the pitcher. So you lose the DH. So let's say he blows the game. But then the other problem you have, Buck, is what happens if you're in the bottom of the 8th and you're winning 2-2, or you're tied 2-2. He hits the go-ahead single with 2 outs, and he's on first base. and then you got to get a pinch run. You can't pinch run for him. So how does he get loose? That's the problem with him being a reliever, right? So because especially as the closer, how fast have you ever had to get up your closer and say, "Hey, go get him," right? When Zach Britton was your closer, you're tied or you're down a run, and Adam Jones pops a 2-run homer for you, and you're like, "Hey, Zach, get up. You got 1 minute to get ready," right? Ohtani can't do that if he's on base.
Yeah, I would try to do everything I could do to make Ohtani being able to perform, as long as the competitive balance for the other team's not warped. So I would try to do whatever I could do to make Ohtani be able to do what Ohtani does. Does that make any sense?
I want to go back to the previous conversation. I mean, I think it's kind of fitting for, changing maybe the integrity of the game in terms of divisions, adding 2 teams. We're going to go back to the Savannah Bananas. Realistically, from your experience there, you said there's things that Major League Baseball could adopt. Is there a rule or a certain thing that you think Major League Baseball could potentially learn from the Savannah Bananas that would, help the game out? Obviously, keep the competitiveness, the integrity of the game, but something that stood out to you that would just improve the overall quality of the game?
No. I think it's 2 different entities. I think Major League Baseball and the way they do it. Keep in mind they do this twice a week. Let's see how they would be if they did it 7 days a week. We're traveling around the countries. And they've got 2 or 3 different traveling teams now. It's not the same team you see. I'm not sure physically the pitchers could stand up if they were doing it 7 days a week. I mean, they're doing it 1 or 2 days a week. And they'll be the first to tell you. And they come in and they barnstorm. They hit a city and they get after it. They're at Starbucks the next day signing autographs. They just basically, barnstorm a whole city for 2 days. I don't think a lot of the stuff that they do would play long term. I love the fact that they got 2 hours on the board, like AJ said. But you know what? They know how to speed the game up. I said, what happens if you're in the 3rd inning and 2 hours is up? He goes, oh, no, that won't happen. We know how to speed the game up. I go, really? Wow, that's pretty cool. But some of the things they do on the field, the behind the backs and the spins and what have you, it's pretty impressive, guys. I got to tell you.
Yeah, it's good product. It's a great product.
Scott, hold up, Scott. Before I know where you're going to go, but I got to say this to Buck. Yeah, it's pretty impressive until JJ Hardy, your shortstop, goes behind the back and makes an error, and then you go grab him by the throat and say, like they said, don't ever do that again. What they say in Major League to him, right? I mean, yeah, it's impressive because it doesn't matter and it's not affecting people's livelihood. But as soon as it goes to livelihood, then you're like, don't ever do that again, JJ.
I saw 2 guys in my whole career. I got to tell a quick JJ story. JJ was he was the best tagger I ever had. JJ could get a ball down on a guy faster than anybody. And he would wait at the bag and he said, the ball can travel faster than my glove. You see these guys go way in front of the bag to take the ball and then chase the runner. I know it would really piss off the catcher, AJ, like you. But JJ would let the ball travel. He would start in front and he would go to a straddle, but he would catch a short hop this way instead of up, because he felt like going up and then coming back down cost a half a count. He and Omar Vizquel are the only 2 guys I ever saw catch a short hop this way. Think about it. Try that at home sometime. Okay, that was my JJ story for AJ.
That's good. I like it. All right, last one. I'll try and get us back on a topic here, and this has been great. I'm sitting back having a great time. This is why we love our Buckle Up segments. But I want to get to something that's pressed this week from a manager situation. It's 2 stories, and I want to get your take on how this works. Take us inside. Yesterday, Aaron Boone said Judge isn't going to be 100% throwing the rest of the year. Judge was like, nah, he's not watching me throw the last couple weeks. And then we also have Kyle Tucker's situation where, the team finally kind of admitted that he's been playing hurt. So the question is just about injuries, where the manager stands, where the team stands on how much they're monitoring players. What's the communication process like? On the Yankees side, of course, Yanks fans, Buck, they're like, oh, he doesn't know what's going on with the team. He's not paying attention. So clear this up on what's happening here and what gamesmanship goes on in the press.
Well, first of all, I'm not there. I don't know everything that's going on behind the scenes and what's said and he said, but I've always said, why don't we just try telling exactly what's going on so we don't have to worry about who said this and who said that. And you're always sitting down with the player. Hey, I'm getting ready to say this. Is this going to be okay? And are you going to say this? Because they're going to ask me this. I always try to, make sure that we were all on the same page. And sometimes there's so many people pulling, they're never going to let the truth get in the way of a good story. I used to tell writers all the time, if you care about being right, I'll never let you be wrong. And you'd be surprised how that kind of separates them. But, that's a simple thing. It's not as big a deal as they make it out to be. Aaron sits down with him today and says, tell me what it is. Because Aaron's talking to the medical people and the trainers and the doctors, and they have a certain take on it. Now, that may not, the last thing Aaron Judge is going to do is present himself as somebody that, can't go play right field. He doesn't want to do that. The players don't want to have that look on, especially the captain of the team. So, that's pretty normal. What's going on with Tucker again?
So Tucker's been struggling the last 6 weeks or so. He's got a hairline fracture.
Yeah.
They addressed it. Counsel, though, initially was like, nah, he's fine. He's healthy. He's good. Although maybe that's what they meant now. And that, he suffered it, I think, back in June. And then he was hitting okay, but eventually got off kilter. And then, maybe he's feeling better, but the swing is still off. So that whole deal of like what you actually share and also how you communicate with that with the player. Kyle Tucker is not a very open book. He's a quiet guy. So he might have said, hey, I just want to play through it. Don't tell anyone anything.
Yeah, there's this old expression, be careful about telling truths that hurt innocent people. And what happens is if you made public exactly everything that guys were playing with, I mean, this is what's different. I used to get on John Harbaugh about it in Baltimore. You guys play once a week, man. You've got an off week. I said, these guys play through things, not as much as maybe they used to, but if you knew every little thing that was going on, I had a cracked thumb I played the next 60 games with. I never brought it up. It was just the way you were raised. I remember, AJ, one day I got my feet cut out from under me in high school basketball, and I laid on the ground too long. I got home and my dad said, hey, were you hurt or injured? I said, sir, were you hurt or injured? If you're hurt, get up. If you're injured, let's go to the hospital. So you got to know the difference between the injury. Some things you can play through, but if they made public every little thing somebody was playing with, you'd be shocked at some of the things that people would look at and go, oh my God, he's playing through this.
Buck, I got to tell this story. I played middle school basketball back, a long time ago. And if you would fall down, the coach would have the other guys come over and literally try to kick you to get you back up. Like they wouldn't actually do it, but they would. It was like a competition to see if we could actually get, not a hard kick, Scott, so don't get excited, but like a little soft kick just to get you up. I mean, that was just the way it was. That's right. That's what you always ask people. Are you hurt or are you injured? Because there is a major difference.
Yeah, I scored my first touchdown. I held the ball over my head for 2 seconds. My dad was waiting on the front porch. He said, congratulations on the first touchdown you'll ever score. You ever scored? I said, no, I didn't. He goes, well, he sure acted like it and went inside. I never did it again.